You're listening to KXSC, on the air always at 1560 AM, on the web at kxsc.org, and on your smartphone on the TuneIn radio app. Welcome back to the Faceoff, USA's only weekly radio hockey show. I'm your host, Graham Jenkins, and we have a trade that just broke. The San Jose Sharks have traded for Nashville defenseman Scott Hannan in exchange for a sixth round pick. That is the trade that is just broken within the last 15 minutes. And now we will resume normal programming. I will update you on more trades as soon as I find them out. For the last 3 years, outside of Alex Goligoski trade that sent James Neal and Matt Niskanen to the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Dallas Stars have stood pat at the trade deadline, holding on to players such as Marty Turco, Brad Richards, Mike Rivera, and Steve Ott over the years. Stars general manager Joe Nieuwendyk was widely criticized by many in 2011 for not trading Brad Richards, who had a no-trade clause, to the New York Rangers, where he eventually went to in free agency. This year, however, Joe Nieuwendyk has taken a completely different approach at the trade deadline, and now the Stars look like a completely different team. One of the three players involved in trades was Derek Roy. Derek Roy had been unable to come to terms on a new contract with the Stars before the trade deadline, and rather than risk losing him to free agency and getting nothing for him, the Stars let teams know that he would be available to trade. Of course, whether or not Derek Roy would be traded depended largely on how the Stars did in the games leading up to the trade deadline. The Stars had a 5-game homestand last week and lost 3 of those games in regulation, including a home back-to-back set with the Los Angeles Kings and Anaheim Ducks, in which the team looked completely lifeless, especially in the 4-0 loss to the Ducks. After that game against the Ducks, the general consensus among Star fans and the media was that Derek Roy was gone. Sure enough, the next day, Derek Roy was the first to go. The Stars traded Roy to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for defensive prospect Kevin Connaughton, and a 2013 second-round pick. Connaughton was Vancouver's third-round pick in 2009, selected 83rd overall. After being drafted by the Canucks, Connaughton played from 2009 to 2010 with the WHL's Vancouver Giants, scoring 24 goals and 48 assists for 72 points in 69 games with them. He then joined the AHL's Manitoba Moose, but the transition from junior to the pros has been a little difficult for him offensively, which is to be expected with many prospects moving up from juniors to pros. With the Moose, Connaughton scored 11 goals and 12 assists for 23 points in 73 games. Connaughton then played for the Chicago Wolves, who became the Vancouver Canucks' AHL affiliate after the Winnipeg Jets displaced the Manitoba Moose when they moved. And in 2011-2012, he scored 13 goals and 20 assists in 73 games. This year, in 60 games with the Wolves, he scored 7 goals and 18 assists for 25 points. And while that seems low, he actually led the Wolves in goals as a defenseman and was second for points by a defenseman on the team with 25. Scouting reports indicate that his offensive game has struggled since he's been focusing a lot on his defensive zone play. He now joins the Texas Stars, the AHL affiliate of the Dallas Stars, as they begin their run in the Calder Cup playoffs that will be set to take place pretty soon. But Joe Nieuwendyk wasn't done. While it was widely reported that the Stars were working on a contract extension with Jaromir Jagr, Joe Nieuwendyk informed Jagr yesterday that morning he was looking to trade him to a contender. I note that because Joe Nieuwendyk didn't have to consult Jagr since he didn't have a no-trade clause in his contract, but talked to him out of respect for his Hall of Fame career. Well, not too long after the Stars announced Derek Roy was traded, they then announced that they traded Jagr to the Bruins in exchange for a 2013 conditional second-round pick and prospects Lane McDermott and Cody Payne. The condition on the second-round pick depends on where Boston goes in the playoffs this year. If the Bruins get past the second round of the playoffs, the second-round pick then becomes a first-round pick for the Stars. So Stars fans are really cheering for the Bruins to go far in the playoffs this year, so that pick becomes a first-round pick. Jagr leaves the Stars after scoring his 1,000th assist in his career and scoring 14 goals and 12 assists in 30 or so games, which led the team. Here's a little more on the prospects the Stars acquired. Cody Payne was drafted by the Bruins in the 5th round, 145th overall, in the 2012 NHL Draft. He currently plays with the OHL's Plymouth Whalers, and after scoring no more than 16 points in his season in his first 2 years with in juniors, he had a breakout season this year, scoring 24 goals and 21 assists for 45 points in 66 games. Scouting reports indicate that Payne is a power forward, and he's got decent size at 6'2", 202 pounds. More in-depth scouting explains that while Payne is a crash and bang winger, he has gotten in better scoring position this year, which is seen in the dramatic rise in points this season. While he needs to improve his puck skills, according to the scouting report, and get his shots off quicker, he has progressed very nicely. Most importantly for Stars fans, he's a center who's a right shot, and right shots are not a common aspect on this year's team. He could potentially join the Texas Stars next season. The other prospect the Stars acquired, Blaine McDermott, was drafted by the Bruins in the 4th round, 112th overall, in 2009. He is 6'3" and 205 pounds and is one of the grittier forwards the Bruins have drafted in recent years. He is definitely not known for his scoring, but he is known for being an enforcer, which is kind of a dying breed in this year's and this day's NHL. With the AHL's Providence Bruins, he played 249 games, tallied 46 points, and racked up 516 penalty minutes. According to Sarah Connors of Stanley Cup of Chowder, which is the SB Nation blog for the Boston Bruins, McDermott was on a line with the Providence Bruins known as the Buzzsaw line. He also reportedly plays a very solid defensive game, something the Stars have kind of struggled with this season, and Providence coach Bruce Cassidy would often send him out after the opposition scored a goal on Providence to provide the Bruins with a little fire and energy. McDermott has played 8 games in his NHL career, earning 3 fighting majors while not tallying any points yet. He will join the Dallas Stars in Anaheim today. This Jagr trade was a bit of a head-scratcher. Many Stars fans were upset that the Stars didn't receive the Bruins' top prospects in return for a legend like Jagr. The draft pick is also not guaranteed to be a first-round pick, and if the Bruins do not win their division and face a stacked Pittsburgh team in the first 2 rounds, the prognosis isn't very good for that pick becoming a first-round pick. Now, of course, many thought the Penguins would go very far in the playoffs last year, but they kind of crashed and burned in the first round against Philadelphia, although it was a very entertaining series. But regardless, we can't accurately predict the playoffs at this stage. Joe Nieuwendyk wasn't done just yet. Later that night, GM Joe Nieuwendyk made another trade, this time sending Tomas Vincour to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for their defensive prospect Cameron Gauntz, whose brother Brenden Gauntz was drafted last year by the Vancouver Canucks in the first round. Fun fact, Cameron Gauntz was drafted in the 2nd round of the 2008 NHL Draft, 50th overall, by the Avalanche, and has played 11 games in the NHL in his career. Since 2010, he's spent most of the last 3 years with the AHL's Lake Erie Monsters, but has struggled offensively this year, scoring 1 goal and 10 assists in 61 games, and has a -8 rating. Last season, for point of reference, he scored 6 goals and 21 assists in 75 games, and had a +17 rating. Tomas Vincour was decent at his puck handling skills for the Stars, but during his time in the NHL, he couldn't find a consistent scoring touch. In 86 games with the Dallas Stars in his career, Vincour scored 7 goals. Perhaps both of these players needed a change of scenery, but we will see exactly how this will play out in the coming weeks. After yesterday, the Stars have 11 defensemen in the the AHL. So there's quite a bit of a logjam defensively in Cedar Park. Many Stars fans interpreted the moves as the team giving up on this season and planning for the future. Despite that, they're not quite out of the playoff picture just yet, but the Stars have a lot less offensively than they did earlier this week. It will be interesting to see how the team responds starting tonight against the Anaheim Ducks. Coming up next, a look at some of the funniest moments in the NHL as we try to distract ourselves from the insanity that is the NHL trade deadline.